Well, hello, folks. I'm back again, and it's time for part two of our Beyonce Renaissance album review. Now, what I want to do with this particular part of the review is to really dive into the music itself. I really want to dissect the different records that make up this album. In our previous part of the review, in part one, what we did is really take a look at things at almost like a macro level, and we really dissected it in the sense of understanding culture, understanding the social impact, understanding the experience of the album. In this particular conversation, what I really want to do is talk about the music itself, talk about some of Beyonce's vocal performances, talk about some of my favorite records. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is a bit different from my regular album reviews. What I'm going to do is actually go through all 16 tracks on the album, and I'm actually going to rank it in order. I'm going to put all the songs in the order of my least favorite to ultimate favorite records. I really was thinking about this as I was dissecting the album over the last 2 weeks, because as I was discussing it with my friends, we all have different favorites. And some of us love certain tracks while it's kind of like meh on others. And then it's the reverse. And I'm like, you know what? This is going to be a really fun conversation. And I want to bring this to YouTube. So follow along. Pull out your pen and paper, pull out your notes on your phone or whatever you want to do, and let's have some fun. In position number 16, what I consider to be the 16th best song on the album is actually the first track, number 1, I'm That Girl. I actually consider this song to be a very good album opener. It sets the tone, it really gets you into that hype kind of feeling. By the way, if there are anybody in the room right now with the children, I need all to put the children outside. Or cover their ears. Put on a little earmuffs and let them play with the iPad. Not the one that watching this video. Put them somewhere else. And if you're in the house with your grandmother, your nene, your conservative tanty, put all them outside too. Because this review is going to have some cursing. We're going to have a little cussing. Because the album it has some expletives in it now. And I really can't talk about the music without saying certain words. So, put on your headphones, turn down the volume so that your boss can hear, and then we talk. The start of this track got me so hyped when I first turned it on. When I heard these motherfuckers ain't stopping me, I got hyped. Because I was like, what is this record? It just started off so fast. These motherfuckers ain't stopping me. These motherfuckers ain't stopping me. These motherfuckers ain't stopping me. And it starts to build that I am like, wait. I know someone, they probably never hear me cuss, or they probably thought Trent never cuss in his life. But trust me, I does real cuss, or they just don't see it on camera. But I felt so hyped. And I felt that set a great tone for the record. But where it kind of took a weird turn was when we got into, it's like a reggaeton kind of beat, like there's a rhythm that feels like reggaeton to me. So many of us in the Black communities across the diaspora, we hear similar things. Like we hear certain beats, we hear certain rhythms, we hear certain patterns. And it's like, that feels like reggae, or that feels like afrobeats, or that feels like soca. There are little moments, that feels like zouk, or that feels like compa. There are moments where there are things where the lines get blurred. And so sometimes you have two different communities claiming a beat. Like, somebody might say, no, that's Afrobeats. Another person might say that's reggaeton. Another person might say that's dancehall. But in this moment, the way the rhythm is moving, it feels like reggaeton to me. That's what I feel. But I feel like when that beat comes in, it actually mellows out the song. And you get to focus more on the background vocals, you get to focus on the stacking and the different things that she's doing. But I feel like it kind of loses steam because you start with this energy, like this hyping, and then it goes into that. And I'm like, okay, it's not the diamonds, it's not the pearls. Okay, can we move on? And I really appreciate it, however, when she switched it up again. Because, it's like 3 different sets of beat patterns. When you get to the third part, and she brings in the hip-hop beat, and then Beyonce starts doing what she always does, and I think, honestly, she is incredible at this, is rap song delivery, where she's like rapping. She's like, bring the beat in so I can breathe again. And it's like you're feeling it, and it's like you want to lift off the chair. But because of that mellow moment in the middle, because the song takes that bit of a dip, I feel like it pushed the song a little further down on the list for me. Next up, in position number 15, is All Up in Your Mind. Now, the thing about this record is that it's just so unusual for me. Like when I heard the way she sang it, I said, this is a very unusual vocal delivery for Beyonce. As a matter of fact, it put me in the mindset of Michael Jackson during his bad era. And the way he had changed up his vocal, he added more of like a rock edge to it. It had more of like that type of tinge, that kind of grit, almost like bordering on a growl and a bit of distortion. And I really like the way that he performed. Like, Bad is my favorite Michael Jackson album. Like, I'm not joking. I love that album. And the Moonwalker movie, I used to watch that to the point that the VHS stopped working. But anyway, I really like the way she sings it. It's unusual for her. It reminds me of how he did Dirty Diana in particular. And the funny thing is that as I'm listening to this record, I'm almost wondering if this is supposed to be Beyonce's response to Dirty Diana. Because that's the energy that I get just listening to it. Because in Dirty Diana, Michael is singing about this woman who's coming on to him, and she wouldn't take no for an answer, and she's seducing him. And in All Up in Your Mind, Beyonce is singing about seducing someone, and that's the energy I'm getting. It's like, is this just Beyonce's clever way of doing like a response to Dirty Diana? And I thought that was really, really clever. But beyond that, I can't lie. After a while, this song starts to feel kind of like an interlude that has overstayed its welcome. Like, I started to feel like, okay, can we get to the end? Can we move on? Or is it going to switch up? Is something else going to come in? Like, it's sexy, but it's kind of like, all right. And at number 14, we have another record that I think is really inspired by Michael Jackson. And that is America Has a Problem. I saw somebody comment and said that, this album, when they previewed the record, they said that this album is very much an ode to the late 20th century era of dance music. And I think, to me, what this captures is that 80s hip hop dance. It was a strange space where there's like a driving tempo. And I feel like Michael really had that element on his Bad album, and especially on the title track. And Beyonce draws on that a lot with this record. And what was really interesting about this is that I saw a tweet, and I would give the person credit if I could remember it. But it's quote-tweeted on my page, so maybe I should have just do my little homework before I turn on my camera. But I remembered somebody on my Twitter, on Twitter said, this song reminds him of old school Ciara. And I said, low-key, this actually reminds me of both old school and current Ciara, because the beat on this actually is very similar to Ciara's Jump, Ciara's most recent single. And they're very, very similar. But the differences between those two songs, between America Has a Problem by Beyonce and Jump by Ciara, is that when you listen to Jump, the beat and Ciara are the stars of the record. But on Beyonce's track, Beyonce is the star of the record because the beat becomes part of a wall of sound. Whereas Beyonce, and the way she does the vocal production and the way that she sings over the track, and of course all the different elements that she adds to it, it makes the beat not just the only star factor. It makes it be part of an overall production that is still very interesting. In at number 13, we have Energy featuring Beam. Well, I hope that's how you say the man's name. I only ever see it spelled out now. But on this record, I like the song. To me, Beyonce really brings some of that afrobeats. She brings some of what she did on Lion King, The Gift. She really brings some of that element and that energy on, no pun intended, onto this track. And I found it was so interesting. It's a track that I really dance to. It's basically an interlude, but I like it. I think it really sets things up for where the album is going to go. But I will say that I prefer the version with Kelis's vocal on it. At number 12 is Plastic Off the Sofa. Now, this record is what I call quiet funk. Normally when you think of funk, it's a lot going on. Now, it's not as, I would say, over the top like disco. As I said in the previous review, is camp R&B. With funk, what you tend to see is usually you have the instrument taking prominence alongside the main vocalist. And as I listen to this record, I hear just some light percussion, but I also hear this bass line. And that's what makes it funk to me. The way that Beyonce is almost duetting and flirting with the bass line. And I think it's really interesting. And it follows a structure that is more... It's very African-American. It's more familiar to an African-American ear. Like if you are a fan of funk or you come from the African-American experience or the African-American community and you grew up listening to funk music, this is something that will really draw you in. And when I was listening to this record, Just the way that she sings it in this cool R&B style, it all, especially with all the way she does her runs and everything, it reminds me of early era Beyonce, and it also reminds me of Solange. Like when I heard it, I was like, this is something I would love to hear Solange on, or even Kelly Rowland. This is a family record for her. This feels like something that really came out of the Knowles household, of the Knowles camp. At number 11, we have Move by Grace Jones and Thames. I really just love the way that Grace Jones opened this song. Hearing her in that Jamaican patois with her twang, just hearing her be so present at the very front of the record, I just loved it. I didn't grow up being the biggest fan of Grace Jones, but I've always respected her. Her music just didn't always strike me. And to be quite honest, I'm not that familiar with a lot of her music because it was just something that I was not exposed to. And I'm probably going to get into her moving down the line because she's such a prominent figure. And I've always been more curious about Grace Jones as a Jamaican woman and as somebody who has, in my opinion, a queer aesthetic, an art aesthetic, and who basically revels in being camp. So I really am interested in discovering more of who she is. But hearing her at the front of this record, as a Caribbean person, as a West Indian, hearing that voice come through at the very start of the record, that was exciting for me. And I also like the afrobeats. I like the way the record moves. It's just a really good song. At number 10, we have Virgo's Groove. I like this song. This is synth funk. This record reminds me of Party from the 4 album, from Beyonce's 4 album. I think that was 2011. This could sit right next to that. Actually, this and Plastic Off the Sofa could both fit on that album very, very smoothly. It will be great. And I think that Beyonce on this record is doing some very interesting things vocally. Because this really was like she's doing so many different things on this track. And I just like the way that she pulls it all together. Like it feels like you're just grooving, like you're dancing, you're moving your hips, you're rocking your body. And she's singing to you. It's almost like she's in your ear, like she's dancing with you on the dance floor. And she's singing into your ear. It just feels like it's something sensual. I really like what she does here. There's those little moments where she's playing around with her voice, different tones and different textures, especially as we get near to the end and you get to hear her go up and she adds this air and this rasp to her voice. It feels almost like a yearning. And I think that works really well. But number 9 is Heated. When I first heard Heated, I felt like it felt familiar. It felt really familiar for multiple reasons. One, at the very jump, I said, something about this reminds me of Drake's One Dance. And then I looked at the credits and I saw that Drake co-wrote the record. So I said, okay, maybe Beyonce heard One Dance, she liked it, and she decided to say, hey, let me get somebody on board who could really help me to, craft that type of sound. But then there's something in the percussion, there's something in the way the record moves. And I kept saying, it kind of feels like soca. Now, One Dance is rooted in soca. It comes from, I think it's UK Funky, which is basically inspired heavily by soca music out of Trinidad and Tobago. So when I think of that lineage and I think of the heritage, I'm like, maybe there are elements, as I said, remember there are blurred lines in the types of percussion and the types of rhythms that we hear across the diaspora. So I felt like maybe that's what I'm hearing and that's what I'm feeling in the song. Even the way the melodies come together on the record, I think are very interesting. I think Beyonce, this is a great vocal performance by Beyonce, by the way. It's actually very underrated in the conversation as far as being a vocal, because people get so caught up in how the song moves, but she's doing some very interesting things vocally on this record. The way she's switching between registers to kind of create this bright, colorful, almost like a skip in the melody. It feels like soca, and it also feels just really bright. It feels interesting. It's the kind of song you want to listen to and just vibe to, especially like in the car. It's that fun, carefree type of vibe. And I really like this song. And there are parts where I think it's in the pre-chorus where she starts to go up and she kind of lets her voice quickly switch between registers. And I think that's so interesting. And I can't bypass the end of the record. I think that, her giving that shout out to Uncle Johnny, Uncle Johnny made my dress that cheap spandex, she looks a mess. I thought that was so I just love the hearing her say that. And I love the claps that come up at certain parts there. That reminds me of ballroom. Because, sometimes somebody's coming out and the crowd starts clapping. Somebody's coming out for LSS, Legend Statements and Stars. You're calling out this person, come to the floor, show me what you can do. And as this person is coming out, the crowd starts clapping. And it's like this champ, 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 champ. It's like building this hype, building this energy. And I feel like those little moments where she clapped, it felt like that to me. And I think it was just great. At number 8, we have Church Girl. I really like the way that Beyonce used that Clark Sisters sample on this record. As a matter of fact, as I was sitting down talking about this with my friends and I was thinking about the record, I really like the way that she uses the voice on the record as almost like an instrument. My friend Elika is the one who pointed that out. Elika, again, real big ups in these videos. She uses the voice in the Clark Sister sample, and she uses that. I think it's Twinkie singing. She uses that as part of the production. It becomes part of the instrumental. It feels like the voice is being used as an instrument on the record. And I feel like when I listen to this record, it reminds me a lot of how Drake did Nice for What. Like, that's where my mind goes to. And I think that is another moment where she was inspired by what Drake was doing when he used the Lauryn Hill sample for Nice for What. He also had Big Frida on that. So, when I hear this record, even though Big Frida's not on this track, but Big Frida is on another track on the record, I just think it's just really interesting. And what makes Church Girl so important for me as a record, and I think it's so special, is because this track combines gospel music with a queer aesthetic. There's something about it that is undeniably queer. Yes, she's twerking, but there's something in the message that feels queer. And those two worlds of gospel, of church, of religion, and queerness, they seem like opposing worlds. And instead she's saying, no, come, you have a space here too. She's saying that you can show up as you are, be yourself, express yourself, even in a space where you can be religious, you can be spiritual, but you can also be yourself. And instead of using religion to ostracize or marginalize or separate people from the church, she's saying, no, you have a space here too. Nobody can judge me. Just the way that she has that recurring line, I was born free, nobody can judge me. That is very powerful to me. At number 7, we have Cuff It. Here now. I hope I'm not spitting up and making too much noise on the microphone and breathing and all in hear me huffing and puffing. And I'm still getting accustomed to the equipment, people. So allow me now. Give me a blind. Focus on what I'm saying and not how we're doing it. Anyway, I love Cuff It. I love that disco vibe. I just love the way the song moves. There's a carefree element to it. And I particularly love the horns. As you know, if you follow me for any length of time, I love brass. I love a saxophone, I love a trumpet, I love a trombone, I love a tuba. I love anything with brass. So when I hear anything like horns on a record, I instantly tune in, I plug in, I hyper-focus. It's one of the reasons why All Night from Beyonce's Lemonade album, when I did that re-review of the album a while back, it's why that song stood out to me as one of my favorites on that album, because just hearing those horns, calypso music here in Trinidad and Tobago and even early soca, there's so much brass and so many horns involved. So hearing it feels familiar to me. At number 6, we have Pure Honey. I love this song. I love the way that it just starts off with the commentator. It just starts off with Kevin Jordan, Zion Prodigy, the icon. And you just start off with him just hyping you up. And it's just those little parts where he's like, cunt. It's just that, I can't get through. Should I go left? Should I go? I love this song. It is such a hype record for me. And as I think about it, I think about my Facebook sister. I think about Yolanda, the icon Yolanda Jordan. I used to sit and watch her voguing on live stream on Facebook forever. And I have watched every video of her on YouTube. I absolutely love her. And as I hear this song, I just keep thinking, if Yolanda was still with us today, because she passed away 3 years ago, but if Yolanda was still with us today, to hear this, she would be on Facebook or on Instagram Live voguing for her life. She would be so excited because she loves Kevin and she loves moments like these. And I just keep thinking about her. This record, it feels like ballroom. It feels like that culture. It feels is boldly queer. And this record to me, it's just so exciting to listen to. At number 5, we have Summer Renaissance. I just have to put this in the top 5. I just love the ode to Donna Summer. I love the way that the sample was used. Even though it's very much on the nose, I love the way that Beyonce sings to it. And I love the fact that it's almost like a send-off. You know, as it closes the album, it's like a send-off. It's like almost like a in memory of, you know, it's speaking to an era, the era in which ballroom was birthed, the 1970s. Well, ballroom as we know with Vogue culture. It speaks to the birth of the houses. It speaks to disco era. It speaks to the era of people being black and free. It speaks to so many different things where blackness and queerness was all over the pop charts. Disco music in itself is black and queer. It just speaks to an era that has passed but has not been forgotten. And I just love the way that the record, it just sends us off with that type of mentality, with that memory. And it also speaks to those people, as I said in the previous review, people who have survived that era and are still with us. This is an ode to you. This is a moment where Beyonce pays homage to the survivors, the people who've come through the HIV/AIDS pandemic, which is still ongoing, but people who have passed through it and are able to look back and say, we are elders now, and there's something here for us. We have not been forgotten. You know, it's not like everybody, you know, you're done old and forgotten and nobody cares. You know, this is a song for everybody in that generation to celebrate. At number 4 is Cozy. I like this record. I like the way that it's just telling you to embrace yourself as fat, as black, as femme, as queer, as whatever you are. Just embrace yourself. And I think what it does is that it really makes the intention of the album clear. Whereas, you know, you think of I'm That Girl gets you hype and it sets the tone, but the intention is really stated on Cozy. You know, especially having that T.S. Madison voiceover. I think it just really, really works. I really love this record. And hidden in the song is a description of the inclusive pride flag. You know, she's breaking down the different colors in the inclusive pride flag. And I thought that was so clever. I didn't even notice it until somebody said it on Twitter. And I said, wow, I didn't even catch it. And now every time I hear the song, I love it even more because it's so clever how it was written. And that message being very clear. This is who this song is for. This is who this album is for. I just think it's fantastic. This one, now, top 3 is going to be a bit controversial, because I know people bracing themselves. Because I know a lot of people love this particular song and they would probably expect it to be number 1. But at number 3 is track number 3. Alien Superstar. This song is a dance floor shaking beat. This song is a monster. Doom, doom, doom. Doom, 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 doom. It just hits you in your chest. It makes you want to get up and move. And I think it's so catchy. There's an earworm in there. Other than the word unique, other than that word in itself, you know, there's an earworm in the melody. And you know, it actually reminds me of Lady Gaga's Guy from the Art Pop album. It's like if Beyonce took Guy, she took Venus from that album as well, but she found a way to perfect the sounds. Because I think this is probably what Gaga would have hoped to have gotten to, but she didn't quite land there. And I know the Art Pop era is something that Gaga is not her favorite era of her career. Gas. But at the same time, I really appreciate the fact that Beyonce was able to elevate that sound. I'm not saying that Beyonce went and steal Gaga's sound and that's what she's doing. I'm just saying that Beyonce somehow landed in a similar space, in a similar sound space. But she did so, she executed and she stuck the landing just a little bit better. Like, you know, it like a Dominique Dawes. She really stuck that landing. And I felt that that was something. Ooh, every time I hear this song is by far the most popular one on social media. This is the one I see everywhere. It just gets you going. And if you've ever done a workout to this record, you know this record is the one that will get you. It will lift you off the floor. At number 2, I have Break My Soul. This song has become my anthem. And I know it's not popular for a lot of people when they do these type of breakdowns to put the single very high up. But to me, this has become my favorite lead single from Beyonce. Now, that is saying something because I think Deja Vu is a hard song to beat. And Drunken Love, if we count that as a lead single, is a hard song to beat. But to me, Break My Soul blows right past both of them. and go straight to number one, because it just becomes, it's anthemic. It feels like, to me, this song is a song I have sung every single day since it come out. Every single day since this song came out, I have sung it in the car. I have sung it to myself. It has become a personal anthem. It makes me feel empowered. And I just love the way that she uses that Big Frida sample. I love the way that it has the Robin S sample. I just felt like when I first heard it, I said, oh, this is just she just basically singing over Show Me Love. But then as I listened to the track, I realized, no, there's so many other things happening here. They're so subtle. I don't always pick up on it on first listen. I just really love the record. And I also love the use of the choir in the record. Because, as a Mariah fan, going back to the early 90s, Mariah was one of the people who was at the forefront of house music in the 90s. I'm not saying that she started the house music wave. She did not invent house music or any of that. But what Mariah did is that she reinvented the remix along with David Morales. She took house dance remixes, which a lot of people just used to just have the song, edited by a producer and they just slap around the vocals. Mariah went back and redid the vocal. And she had a way of incorporating backgrounds, stacks, and even choirs into her music to give it this big arena-filling sound. And I feel like hearing the choir on this, to me, was like Beyonce drawing from that in a very great way without copying Mariah's style. She draws on it and just the right amount because the choir doesn't overpower the record. I just feel it's awesome. So props to Queen Mother Mariah. And in position number 1, at the top of the list, is Thick. I know some people are probably slapping the phone. They probably pelt the iPad in the toilet. They probably cussing and say, Trent could Holy Mother so-and-so. That's all the business. What the people on Moria and them used to say? Whatever. You don't know me. You don't know me. That's the energy I have right now. Because Thick is that song. I had a spiritual experience the first time I listened to Thick. I was screaming. I had to call people. I was sending people voice notes on the WhatsApp. I was bawling. I couldn't believe what I was listening to. Thick. I had to keep exhaling. Thick combines 3 of my favorite Beyonce songs. Haunted, Partition, and 6 Inch. She took the sensuality of Partition. She took the rhythm of Haunted, and she gave me the crawling bass, that throbbing bass of 6 Inch, and combined it into this glorious record. Thick. Even though people are saying, well, Trent, the lyrics don't really mean much, and that's all right. Not everything have to be some deep word of prose. Sometimes I just need a record that moves me. And it speaks to my lived experience. I have gained weight in this pandemic. I can't fit in some of my jeans anymore. But Thick helps me to embrace that. As we say in Trinidad, my body is thick like mud and sweet like molasses. And every time I think of Thick, Thick speaks to me. I love Thick. Thick is my favorite song. And every time I think of moving it further down, I go listen to it and I'm reminded, no, this is my number 1. Thick. Now, this whole list might change in a week, but I don't think Thick moving from number 1. If you vex, hard luck. What we say here in Trinidad, who vex loss? Well, take that. Still thinking about Thick. Anyway, please subscribe to the channel if you have already not subscribed. If you are, make sure you click that bell so you can see future content whenever it drop. And of course, hear this now. Leave your comments and let me know what are your favorite tracks on this album. What's your number 1? What's your number 2? What are your top 5 songs? You want to do a full 16? You just want to tell me your best and your least favorite? Let me know. Share your thoughts in the comment section and we'll keep the conversation going. Until then, I'm going to listen to Thick. And I know some of you are probably looking at me right now with a hard cut eye, a side eye as the Americans just call it. Say what? I'm going to listen to Thick. All right? Have a good day.